These are some of the most disturbing crimes that happen in the K-pop community, with each case growing more disturbing. It's mid-2024. K-pop boy bands are at the peak of their global fame, with groups breaking records and dominating charts in South Korea and overseas. Fans around the world are following every move, every performance, and every release, making the industry more competitive and intense than ever. Among these groups was NCT, one of the biggest names in K-pop, known for their sharp choreography, catchy songs, and loyal international fanbase. Moon Tae-il, a main vocalist of the group, had quickly become a fan favorite. His warm voice, emotional delivery, and humble personality won over audiences everywhere. Alongside his bandmates, he was enjoying sold-out concerts, TV appearances, and high-profile endorsements. On the surface, it seemed like nothing could go wrong, and success was all but guaranteed. But behind the music, lights, and applause, a shadow was forming. Subtle tensions, industry pressures, and unforeseen controversies were quietly mounting, setting the stage for events that would shock fans and ultimately bring Taeil's rising career to an abrupt halt. It all begins one June evening in Itaewon, Seoul's busy nightlife district. Tae-il and two acquaintances, identified only as Lee and Hong, meet a Chinese tourist we'll call Miss A. She had been drinking heavily, and what follows is not a night of music and celebration, but of horror. The three men, Tae-il, Lee, and Hong, escort Miss A into a taxi, but instead of ensuring her safety, they bring her to an apartment in Soko district. There, between 4 and 4:30 a.m., while she's intoxicated and unable to resist, she's S8. Not long after, Miss A makes the decision to report the incident, yet the public remains unaware. In fact, on June 14th, just a day after the incident, Tae-il goes live on Instagram to celebrate his birthday. He played piano, greeted fans, and laughed, discussing future plans, all while hiding a secret that would shock the nation. And for nearly 2 months, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. On August 3rd and 4th, Tae-il even stood on stage with NCT at their 8th anniversary fan meeting, performing before thousands. But behind the scenes, authorities were already building a case. It wasn't until mid-August that Tae-il and SM Entertainment finally became aware of the investigation, and on August 28, 2024, Tae-il was called for questioning by the police. That same day, the shocking announcement is made. Moon Tae-il is leaving NCT. The fans are stunned, but the truth is that his contract with SM Entertainment is still in place, at least for the moment. SM Entertainment then finally addressed the allegations in an official statement, and two lines stood out in particular. "We've recently confirmed that Tae-il has been implicated in a criminal case related to intimate crimes, and we've decided that Tae-il could no longer continue team activities." And the following day, Seoul Bangbei Police Station provides new details to the press, confirming that the case held against Tae-il had been reported as early as June. Authorities also revealed that the victim, only referred to as Miss A, is an adult woman, but the specific charges and the exact timeline of the incidents aren't disclosed. At the time, the case was still developing, but it was already clear that it would be detrimental to Tae-il's career. In fact, it already was. But this was still only the beginning of a long and disturbing investigation. By September, the police had uncovered troubling evidence. Messages exchanged between the three men suggested that they were aware that the victim was a foreigner, and even discussed falsifying the taxi's drop-off address to cover their tracks. It took investigators nearly 2 months of CCTV analysis to piece the case together and identify the suspects. And once the investigation was complete, the file was handed over to prosecutors, specifically the Women and Children's Crime Investigation Division, a unit that specializes in handling some of the most sensitive and serious cases. On October 7, 2024, Korean outlet Chosun Ilbo confirmed earlier reports, stating that Tae-il was under investigation for non-consensual acts involving an incapacitated victim. The article reiterated that the victim had been under the influence of alcohol, and that the two other men, who weren't public figures, were also implicated. Later the same month, SM Entertainment would officially terminate Tae-il's contract. June 18th marked Tae-il's first public sighting in over a year. At the Seoul Central District Court, he appeared silent and withdrawn. He was dressed in black and wearing a white mask. The first hearing took place, and the prosecutor requested a 7-year prison sentence. During the trial, Tae-il admitted to all the charges. And finally, on July 10th, 2025, the court sentenced Tae-il and his accomplices to 3 years and 6 months in prison. They were immediately taken into custody, and the sentence also included participation in a treatment program, public disclosure of their personal information, and restrictions on working with young people. Taeil's attorney emphasizes remorse and the steps he had taken toward rehabilitation. But for the public and the industry, the verdict marked the definitive end of his career. But this is only the beginning. The next case takes us into the rise and collapse of glam and the shocking crime that destroyed them.
2 women were trying to blackmail him. One of the 2 women was revealed to be glam member Kim Da-hye.
Now before talking about the next case, I want to briefly talk about the most insane promotional campaign right now. This video is sponsored by Temu. The shopping platform that offers items at insanely great prices is having their 2nd year anniversary campaign right now, and they're giving you literally $100 in cash. Yes, they will actually send money to you. No coupon, no downside. All you have to do is download Temu using the link in the description, and once you're on their app, search up DXH2936, which is my exclusive code, so you're supporting me as well. With that, you'll see their promotion page where you can win your free $100. This applies to new users with qualifying orders, but it's literally free money. Why wouldn't you take it? And with that, you can either just say thank you and be happy, or buy probably anything imaginable on Temu. Gaming chairs, headphones, funny pants, everything you want. Now if you're not based in the US, Temu got you covered too. You can receive a $100 coupon bundle instead. There's a different link for that, so check the links in the description box or the QR code right here. Everything is getting more expensive, so not taking free money with practically no downsides is just silly. Go ahead and use the link in the description and get yourself some nice things. Now let's talk about the next case. In the early 2010s, Big Hit Entertainment was still a small, struggling company. Before the world actually knew them as the label behind BTS, they only had one other girl group, a joint project with Source Music called Glam, short for Girls Be Ambitious. They debuted in July 2012 with 5 members: Jiyeon, Chinee, Trinity, Taehi, and Miso. At the time, expectations were high. Glam was Big Hit's first and only girl group, and for a company fighting to survive in the competitive K-pop industry, their success could have been the breakthrough they needed. But instead of making history, Glam would be remembered for scandal, controversy, and one of the most shocking cases to ever shock the idol industry. After their debut, things looked promising for Glam. Their first single, Party, was praised for its progressive message and catchy sound. The girls stood out in an industry with new debuts, and Big Hit's survival seemed tied to their success. But in December of the same year, rumors began to spread. Rumors surrounding the member Trinity. According to online speculation, Trinity was a Sasang fan of Took, the leader of Super Junior. For those who haven't watched our previous video on disturbing K-pop cases, Sasang fans are obsessive stalker fans, infamous for invading idols' privacy at all costs. Some follow them to airports, camp outside their homes, or even go as far as obtain personal information illegally. And Trinity, at least it was alleged, went as far as pretending to be the daughter of a broadcasting company CEO just to get close to Took in private. And whether or not these claims were true, the backlash was swift. Super Junior had one of the largest fandoms in K-pop at the time, and Glam's much smaller fanbase stood no chance. And Trinity's prior reputation didn't help either, since she'd already earned the nickname Cussing Granny for her bluntness and frequent swearing. Combined with the Sasang allegations, the outrage became overwhelming. And on December 31st, 2012, it was announced that Trinity would be leaving Glam for personal reasons, a vague phrase often used in K-pop, but the timing left little to no doubt. Glam was now down to 4 members. Although Trinity's departure left a stain, Glam pressed on. Their music gained attention, and Taehi even branched into acting. The group also garnered attention when she provided the voice for the Vocaloid 3 product CU, the first Korean language Vocaloid. But beneath the surface, the group was heading straight towards another scandal. They would not only end their careers, but also make international headlines. And to understand why, we need to talk about the man at the center of it, Lee Byung-hun. Today, Lee Byung-hun is one of South Korea's most famous and respected actors. He starred in international blockbusters like G.I. Joe, Terminator Genesis, and The Magnificent Seven. In Korea, he's celebrated for his roles in acclaimed films like I Saw the Devil and more recently Squid Game. His reputation as both a domestic legend and a global star makes him one of the most recognizable faces in Korean entertainment. But back in 2014, his name was dragged into one of the biggest celebrity scandals of the decade. And at the very center of it was Glam's Taehi. It all began in July 2014 when Lee Byung-hun was introduced to 25-year-old model Lee Ji-yeon and 20-year-old Kim Dae-hee of Glam through a mutual acquaintance. During this gathering, Dae-hee initially sat between Byung-hun and Ji-yeon, but the actor actually requested a seat change so he could actually sit beside Lee Ji-yeon. From the start, the atmosphere was suggestive. Byung-hun reportedly asked the model for her phone number, but she refused, giving an excuse that her mother had failed to pay her phone bill. Instead, she offered her social media contacts. But Byung-hun pushed further, saying he could cover her phone bills for a year and even provide financial help. Now, Lee Ji-yeon later admitted that her excuse was simply to avoid sharing her number, and she turned down his offer once again. 2 days later, Lee Byung-hun and Lee Ji-yeon met again, this time in the latter's apartment. Dae-hee joined them later that evening, and the three played a card game that soon turned questionable. Each time Lee Jeon lost, Lee Byung-hun allegedly asked her for kisses, though she deflected his requests. At one point, he secretly recorded the actor as he asked Lee Jeon provocative questions, pretending she was just texting on her phone. During this time, Lee Byung-hun also gave Lee Jeon gifts, including a phone and about $1,350 in cash. However, she refused to accept them too, returning the items immediately. And the text messages exchanged between the two revealed a playful but ambiguous tone.
What's for dinner? What do you like? You.
By the end of the month, Lee Byung-hun attended Lee Jeon's birthday, bringing along Argentinian wine and luxury makeup. And before Dae-hee arrived, Lee Jeon claimed that Lee Byung-hun had made physical advances, which she resisted, although the actor denied that any inappropriate contact actually occurred. But their text exchanges leading up to and after the gathering continued to sound flirtatious, with Lee Byung-hun referring to romantic meetings and his desire to succeed romantically. Lee Jeon, however, often responded in ways that suggested discomfort or just deflection.
We're seeing each other tomorrow, right? Will it be romantic? We'll see how you do. I'll be good.
But by mid-August, the fragile balance broke. During their final meeting, tensions escalated. Lee Jeon told Lee Byung-hun she wanted limits. She was uncomfortable with the increasing physical intimacy and wanted space. But on the actor's side, however, he claimed that Lee Jeon had been asking for financial support and had money issues, which were actually the heart of their conflict. But texts that were later published showed Lee Byung-hun apologizing, saying,
I stepped out of line today. I think we should stop seeing each other. We'll only hurt each other.
And Lee Jeon responded in frustration, saying,
You're cutting off human relations like this, huh?
Suggesting hurt and surprise at how abruptly things ended. In the weeks after their quote-unquote breakup, hard feelings grew, and the two women's relationship with Lee Byung-hun turned bitter, and before long they came up with a plan to blackmail him. They threatened to release the recorded videos of his suggestive remarks unless he paid them nearly $5 million. The two even began preparing to escape to Europe, securing passports and discussing their departure. Yet before the plan could actually be carried out, Lee Byung-hun reported them to the police. And as quickly as it escalated, it ended on September 1st, 2014, when the police arrested both Lee Jeon and Dae-hee, with the case immediately exploding in the media. Later that year, the two women then submitted letters of apology, continuously expressing their acknowledgement of their own faults. However, the prosecution remained unconvinced, stating that the letters contained distortions of facts and still blamed the victim, suggesting a lack of true remorse. The case quickly moved into trial, where prosecutors accused both women of extortion. Dae-hee admitted to sending threats, but actually denied any intent to follow through, while Lee Jeon requested bail and expressed remorse, saying,
I'm very sorry to the victim and his family. I'm truly regretting what I've done. I have a chronic illness, so I've been getting treated for it. It would be difficult to continue treatment in prison.
But the judges still rejected their claims, ruling the evidence showed a deliberate attempt to blackmail. On January 15, 2015, the court sentenced Lee Jeon to 1 year and 2 months in prison, and Kim Dae-hee received a 1-year sentence. Both women were taken into custody immediately. For Dae-hee, the ruling was devastating. As a member of Glam, her involvement meant the group's reputation couldn't recover. And just hours after the sentencing, Big Hit and Source Music announced Glam's official disbandment. For Lee Byung-hun, the scandal was damaging, but not career-ending. But for Glam, the controversy marked the permanent end. Our next story, however, is one of the most chilling cases in idol history. The tragic tale of the 28 injections that led to a death.
사망이냐 아니면 타살이냐를 놓고 논란이 끊이질 않던 인기그룹 듀스의 전 멤버 김성재 씨의 죽음은
On November 20th, 1995 in Seoul, 23-year-old Kim Sang-jae, one half of the duo Deux, made a solo debut with As I Told You on SBS Gayo. The performance was a success, earning widespread praise. Family and friends later also said that Sang-jae had been in good spirits that night, optimistic about the future. Afterwards, he checked into the Swiss Grand Hotel with his manager, several backup dancers, and his girlfriend, Kim Yoo-sun. Each person retired to their own room, except for Sang-jae, who chose to stay with his girlfriend in the living room. The next morning at 6 AM, his manager tried to wake him up, but when Sang-jae didn't respond, he assumed it was simple exhaustion from the concert and left him to rest. But an hour later, the situation had changed. By 7 AM, it was clear that Kim Sang-jae was dead. Authorities were contacted immediately. At first, the police declared his death because of cardiac arrest, likely linked to overworking, but the actual autopsy revealed 28 puncture marks on Sanjay's right arm. Early theories suggested that he may have left this earth on his own, or it could be because of a substance abuse. But Sanjay was right-handed. How could he have injected himself in his dominant arm with such precision? And so the OD theory was quickly dismissed. But on December 5th, chemical analysis confirmed the cause of death: an overdose of tolidamine solazepam, also commonly known as Zolotil, an anesthetic for animals. The substance had clogged his veins, explaining the multiple punctures. But what disturbed his family most was how he was found. Sanjay was still in full stage makeup, wearing a sweater that had been a gift from his girlfriend. His mother insisted he would have never gone to bed without removing it, raising doubts about whether the scene had been staged or not. And before long, suspicion began to focus on one person: Kim Yoo-sun, his girlfriend. Their relationship wasn't a healthy one by any means. Her behavior was already far beyond control. In the past, she fired a gas gun at him, tied him up to his bed to keep him from signing contracts, and called him up to 6 times a day. She even interrupted their concerts, storming the stage to yell at his fans. Amid this intense and unpredictable relationship, shortly after Sanjay's solo debut, he traveled to the US and met another woman. But when he returned, he allegedly reconciled with Yoo-sun, though the reasons remain unclear. And the investigators later found the truth. Yoo-sun had purchased Zolotil, magnesium sulfide, and syringes just weeks earlier, and when questioned, she pleaded with the pharmacist not to report the purchases. At first, Yoo-sun claimed that she bought the drugs to euthanize her dog, and later she said she intended to use them to leave this earth on her own because of her love for Sanjay. But the prosecutors weren't convinced. They argued that she injected Sanjay 28 times and staged the scene to look like an OD. The court initially agreed, and she was actually sentenced to death. But instead she appealed, and the sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. But in the third trial, everything changed. Witnesses began to backtrack. The pharmacist who first had Kim asked if Zolotil would appear in an autopsy suddenly claimed he couldn't remember. Investigators also confirmed another troubling detail. She actually only purchased 5 milligrams of Zolotil, and the experts questioned if that amount could even be lethal. For comparison, anesthetizing a chimpanzee, a very close animal to humans physiologically, requires around 1 milliliter of Zolotil per 10 kilograms of body weight for just 1 hour of sedation. By that measure, 5 milliliters was far too little to actually kill an average man. And magnesium sulfate, another drug she obtained, was never actually found in Sanjay's body. And so without the key testimony, the case actually fell apart, and Yoo-sun was cleared of all charges. She walked free. In the years following the investigation, television programs attempted to revisit the case, hoping to uncover new details and bring answers to the public. SBS investigative show Unanswered Questions dedicated multiple episodes to the mysterious death of Kim Sanjay, delving into inconsistencies and exploring the questions that remained unsolved. However, the legal obstacles complicated everything. Kim Yoo-sun, the girlfriend connected to the case, filed defamation lawsuits that effectively halted the broadcast in both 2019 and 2023. The restrictions actually prevented the story from being fully explored on television, leaving a lot of questions unanswered. Despite these setbacks, the intrigue around the case continued, and the level of attention it drew was so significant that producers hinted the story might eventually be adapted for streaming platforms like Netflix, allowing it to reach a global audience and perhaps go beyond the limitations imposed by Korean court restrictions. One translated announcement from Papago noted,
"Tomorrow's episode will be about the mystery of Kim Sang-jae's death. Unfortunately, the court has decided to ban broadcasting."
And even years later, the shadow of Sang-jae's death loomed large, a story still surrounded by mystery. Today, Kim Yoo-sun is rumored to have changed her name, undergone full facial surgery, and now allegedly works in the medical field, far removed from the scandal that once consumed headlines. And now, nearly 30 years later, authorities are reportedly preparing to close the case, citing the limits of available evidence and the passage of time. But despite that, Kim Sang-jae's brother and family members continue to demand answers, refusing to let the story fade into obscurity. Now, nearly 2 decades later, another story would once again test the limits of justice in Korean entertainment. This time, the victims weren't global stars, but a boy band whose dreams of music quickly turned into a nightmare. In 2016, a new boy band called the E-Slide debuted under Media Line Entertainment. The group was made up of 6 members: Eun-sing, Junuk, Sagang, Woojin, and their brothers Seok-choi and Sung-hyun. All of them were still underage at the time of their debut, with the youngest being just years old. But despite that, the group quickly attracted attention for their talent, energy, and youthful charm, and fans had high hopes for their future. At first, everything seemed to point towards a bright career. They both trained hard and built a growing fanbase. However, away from the public eye, the environment at the company was far from safe. Over time, reports emerged saying that the members were subjected to extreme physical and verbal abuse by some of the staff, including their producers. And what was supposed to be a nurturing place for young talent became a place of fear. On October 18, 2018, a news outlet called X Sports News reported that the members of the East Side had been subjected to years of abuse. According to their report, the boys had faced verbal attacks from CEO Kim Chang-won, while their producer, Moon Young-il, carried out repeated acts of physical violence dating back to 2015, and the accounts were brutal. The producer was said to slap the boys across the face, beat them with a baseball bat and a metal microphone. In one case, he reportedly wrapped a guitar string around a member's neck, tightening it whenever a mistake was made during practice. And when they tried to resist or complain, Moon Young-il allegedly threatened them with the words,
"I'm going to kill you."
And the abuse left visible injuries too. Some members bled from head wounds, while others were left with deep bruises. At least one member required treatment not only for physical injuries, but also for psychological trauma. And the CEO was reported to have witnessed these assaults firsthand, but instead of intervening, he was quoted saying to the producer,
"Don't be too harsh."
Now later that same day, the news report came out. Medialine Entertainment issued an official statement saying,
"About a year and 4 months ago, the East Side producer became aware of the first time that an assault had occurred while guiding and educating the members. And later, through conversation with the members' parents, he resolved it amicably and promised to prevent reoccurrence."
The statement ended with,
"Taking this incident as an opportunity, we will find the best solution to the East Side's future activities and affected members. I apologize once again."
But for the public, the explanation rang hollow. The image of teenage boys being beaten and threatened under the care of their company couldn't be erased so easily. And so on October 19th, the group's leader, Seok Choi, held a press conference alongside his lawyer to publicly address the abuse he and his fellow members had endured.
저는 더이슬라이트 리더로서 그리고 Kpop, 한국을 이끄는 Kpop 가수로서 사랑하는 멤버들과 사랑하는 동생들이 당한 상처 더 이상 방관할 수 없었고 더 이상 이 Kpop 씬의 아동학대와 인권 유린이 사라졌으면 하는 바람에 여러 가지로 두렵지만 오늘 이 기자회견에 자리를 선 것입니다. 감사합니다.
For years, rumors and whispers about mistreatment had circulated, but nothing had been officially confirmed until this very moment. Seok Choi spoke about the physical and verbal abuse that had been inflicted by producers and staff, sharing the reality of what life had been like behind closed doors at the company, and the statements would soon confirm what fans and the public had only suspected. After the press conference, JBTC's newsroom broadcast new evidence, and the photos showed bruised legs and arms, and one image even revealed a member bleeding from the head. All of the statements and rumors were actually true, and even an audio clip of CEO Kim Chang-won speaking to Seok Choi was also aired.
믿고 맡기면 배 죽여도 놔둬야 돼. 연예인이라고 신문에는 나봐라. 새끼야, 니네 절당이 없어. 야. 누가 그 문제 있는 애를 데려가. 판을 키우면 안 돼. 판을 키우면 니네 엄마 아빠가 더 괴로워. 지금의 한 10배로 괴로워.
The record was crucial. It proved that not only did the CEO know about the abuse, but also tried to silence the victims through threats and manipulation. But the audio wasn't the only evidence. Messages later surfaced. The first conversations were between producer Moon Young-il and the boy's father, while the next two were with the CEO. Among the messages, one stood out, a direct confrontation between the boy's father and the producer.
"Mr. Moon Young-il, this is an image of the handlebar that you used to hit Sung-hyun. Do you remember? I'm sending this to you so that you can remember, in case you forgot. I apologize. I feel like there's nothing else for me to say to you."
It was an undeniable admission, but even that wasn't the end of the evidence either. A now deleted YouTube video, once uploaded to the East Side's official channel, revealed something even more disturbing. In the background, Seok Choi's voice can be heard. The other members were also on camera at the time, looking over to see what was happening, and one of them explained,
"Actually, on the way there, Seok Choi was playing music in the car and opened the sunroof without starting the engine, doing everything he wanted to do, so the battery in one of the cars died. He's being disciplined by our manager."
The camera briefly shows the scene but then cuts to a different clip, but the viewers still noticed and quickly reacted online, commenting,
"If it's like that even while the camera's rolling, I can't even imagine what it's like when they're not filming. How much must this have happened on a day-to-day basis that they put this in like it's something funny?
The disturbing footage was swiftly removed, but the impact remained. So the same day, Medialine Entertainment announced the termination of the remaining 4 members' contracts. According to the agency, the decision came after a discussion with the members and their parents, marking a pivotal moment in the scandal and confirming the gravity of the situation that had taken place behind the scenes. But outside the company walls, things were far from calm. The public reacted immediately, outraged by what they had just learned. And then a petition was posted on the Blue House website, demanding punishment for producer Moon Young-il and the CEO. And just 3 days after it was opened, the petition had nearly 200,000 signatures. And on October 26, the brothers Lee Seok-choi and Lee Sang-hyun visited Bangbae police station with their father and lawyer to file official complaints. And Sang-hyun made a brief but heartbreaking statement to the press before entering.
I remember it clearly, as if it happened yesterday. I'm so afraid.
And with this testimony, the authorities could no longer look away. By December, the investigation had gathered enough evidence to take decisive action. Producer Moon Young-il was detained and formally charged of extraordinary and repeated violence against the underage members. But the story didn't end there. Even with Moon behind bars, questions lingered about the role of the agency, the responsibility of other staff, and the long-term effects of the victims, ensuring that this scandal would continue to haunt Kpop and spark controversies about the treatment of young trainees for years to come. The other members who'd been quietly terminated appeared at a press conference with CEO Chang Hyun. And they actually denied the brothers' claims, insisting that the quote-unquote abuse had been exaggerated, and they dismissed the key allegations. Eun-sing claimed that the head injury was caused by a light flick that didn't even hurt, and as for the guitar string incident, they brushed it off as a joke. They pulled after watching the film Whiplash.
We were playing around after watching the movie Whiplash, and Seok-choi wrapped the guitar string around his neck himself. Then producer Moon Young-il slightly played around with them. We were all happily playing around as we practiced, but it made me very sad, as it was distorted into a time that was like hell.
It was statement against statement. So in the same month, the 2 brothers appeared at the Seoul Central Prosecutor's office, determined to speak truthfully and push back against the agency's narrative. And the brothers' testimony marked a turning point. The police believed them instead of the others. And so by January of 2019, CEO Kim Chang-won faced formal indictment, and within months, the trial finally began. Prosecutors laid out a disturbing pattern: 31 separate instances of violence against the brothers, ongoing mental abuse, and even forcing a teen to smoke electronic cigarettes. And the producer Moon Young-il actually admitted to the charges, while the CEO denied everything. Now in the end, producer Moon Young-il was sentenced to 1 year and 4 months in prison for mistreatment of young people, while the CEO was sentenced to 8 months in prison and suspended for 2 years of probation. Both of them were also ordered to attend treatment programs, and Medialine Entertainment was fined 20 million Korean won, which is roughly $17,000. And the Supreme Court upheld both rulings, officially closing the case as it is. What you just witnessed was horrifying, but this next case will trump even that one.
A powerful CEO who went from managing K-pop stars to facing charges of orchestrated sexual violence, manipulation, and abuse, shocking an entire industry.
On April 23rd, MBC's Good Day Entertainment Plus then aired a shocking report on the indecent harassment and assault surrounding Open World's entertainment CEO. One of the victims, an anonymous former trainee, came forward to share her experience behind closed doors at the agency. She recounted her audition, a moment that should have been the first step towards her dreams, but instead it became a nightmare.
At the audition,
She said,
the CEO told me to do a captivating dance for him. I thought he wanted to see my talents, but it felt completely wrong. We were alone in a closed room. After the dance, he made me sit on his lap and show him what I was feeling.
The harassment didn't stop there. She also described a late-night practice session where she was summoned to the office around 9 PM, with all the lights off except for the CEO's room. Inside, another man, claiming to be a famous agent, pressured her to take off her clothes. And when she refused, he scolded her, saying,
So many girls throw themselves at me. You are kicking away good fortune here.
She was even belittled to a colleague at another agency, being told that she had no talent. Terrified and in tears, she tried to leave, but the nightmare simply followed her. Waiting for the elevator, she was handled roughly by the CEO, who sneered,
You think you can be a singer like this?
This experience shattered her dreams. She left the agency, heartbroken, and abandoned the career she'd worked so hard to pursue. And while the episode itself may not be accessible, Multiple news articles reported on the interview and its shocking content. The accounts of these victims highlighted a systematic pattern of exploitation, which prosecutors had escalated in early 2012. Two 18-year-old aspiring singers testified that they were brought to the dormitory and told they had to charm men if they wanted to debut. Frightened and unable to resist this authority, they were then subjected to inappropriate touching, pressured into so-called massages, and they were assaulted while being told that this was part of becoming an entertainer. With each new detail coming to light, public outrage intensified, and media scrutiny became impossible to ignore, leading the company to issue a public apology by April 19th. They admitted to the shame that the scandal had caused, but maintained that their own celebrities were actually uninvolved. But the investigation pushed forward, and evidence stacked against Saku, and the prosecutors soon sought for a 9-year sentence. They accused him of not only harassment, but of systematically abusing his influence over vulnerable trainees, some of whom weren't of age. And finally, on August 15th, the same year, the court delivered its ruling. Jang Saku was sentenced to 6 years in prison for his crimes, ordered to complete a treatment program, and placed on a registry for public disclosure. The court dismissed his claims of consensual encounters and rejected his appeal for leniency, but even with the sentence handed down, the damage was irreversible. The scandal left open world entertainment in ruins, but it wouldn't be the last time K-pop would face shocking revelations of abuse. Our next case dives into another well-known girl group, but this time we focus on a single member, from the moment she left the group up to her eventual prison sentence.
Earlier in January, Lee was also sentenced to 8 months in prison and 2 years of probation for abuse.
Rum was born in Seoul, South Korea, and she initially gained popularity in 2012 as the newest member of T&C, a girl group that was one of the most recognizable K-pop groups at the time. But unfortunately, her timing couldn't have been worse. By 2012, T&C was already established with a strong fanbase, and a lot of fans felt that the group didn't need new additions. So when Core Contents Media suddenly announced more members would be added, it stirred unease among both the public and the group itself. For a while, the group tried to continue as normal, but it wasn't long before the atmosphere around T&C changed. Every small interaction between the members was being closely scrutinized. And this pressure finally boiled over just a month after Rum's debut, when a heated exchange involving one of the newer members sparked public outrage. The whole scandal kicked off after a Twitter spat between Ha-young and the rest of the members of T&C. One of the messages read,
"The will can make a person, just like the position can make a person. Phew, that's too bad. You need to know how to take care of the people next to you."
Right away, the public took her side, convinced that the rest of T&C were actually bullies. Practically overnight, the group's image flipped, going from adored to hated. Fans were skipping their concerts, even going as far as destroying and burning their merchandise. It wasn't until 2017 that leaked messages between Ha-young and Rum told a very different story. One of the messages of Ha-young read,
"I'll scratch up your face so you can't be on TV."
It turned out the so-called victim had actually been the one causing problems, but by then the damage was already done, and in the middle of it all, Rum's time with T&C was short-lived. Just a year after joining, she announced her departure in 2013 and declaring this during her farewell message.
좋은 추억으로 남기고 이제 아름이가 솔로로 아마 찾아뵐 것 같습니다. 그래도 언니들도 앞으로 계속 활동할 거니까 절대 잊지 마시고 아름이는 더욱더 기대하시고 또 잊지 말아주세요. 아름이 화이팅! 그리고 T&C 화이팅! 아름이를 지금까지 사랑해주셔서 정말 감사드리고요. 그래도 T&C로서 활동했던 곡들이나 무대들은 절대 잊지 말아주셨으면 합니다.
For a while, she faded from the spotlight, but in 2018, Rum tried to make a comeback on the survival show The Unit. On the show, she openly spoke about her struggles with her mental health and the challenges she faced after leaving T&C.
솔직히 저는 일단 이게 제일 아팠던 기억이긴 해요. 이건 정말 언빌리버블한 스토리인데 대인기피증 같은 게 조금씩 생기기 시작했어요. 마지막쯤에. 사람이 다 무서웠어요. 다 괴물같이 보이고. 병원에 이제 가서 엄마랑 저랑 같이 쓰는 병동에 있었어요. 그래서 거기서 이제 마음 치료 받으면서 한 달 정도 있었거든요. 그러면서 많이 치유된 것 같아요.
But despite her honesty, her performances didn't really stand out, and she was eliminated in 44th place. And after that, she stepped away from the industry once again. However, stepping off the stage did not mean losing the spotlight. Away from the press, Adam's private life was about to shift in the most dramatic way that one could imagine. In 2019, she married a businessman named Kim Young-gui after just a year of dating. Especially since she was already pregnant, She gave birth to her son in 2020, but in the years that followed, the marriage became increasingly more unstable, and the couple even appeared on TV, caught between marriage and divorce, a reality show about couples who are contemplating and preparing for separation. And while all of this was going on in Erum's life, another person entered during this difficult moment, Sa Dong-hoon, and he had a troubled past. According to Dispatch, he had been convicted of fraud and violence against women in 2021 and was given a 2-year and 6 months prison sentence. He was let out of prison in September, and following this release, he made an effort to change who he was, and it was around October when they first connected. Sa Dong-hoon claims it was Erum who initiated contact over social media, starting with,
"Hello, I'm Erum. I've been living separately for 6 months."
But what drew them together in the first place remains a mystery. And Sa Dong-hoon added to the mystery by introducing himself as a movie scriptwriter and carrying a business card claiming connections to Lodi Entertainment, one of the largest corporations in South Korea. Then in December of 2023, Erum made up her mind at last. She told everyone she was leaving her husband and marrying Sa Dong-hoon at the same time. On Instagram, she described him as someone who
showed me what real happiness is when I was exhausted,
and who
fills the times of my painful dreams with hope and excitement.
And after her divorce and her new relationship, Erum appeared to be doing well. However, underneath all of this happiness, a far more disturbing reality was just starting to emerge. Later in December, Erum reportedly asked a friend for financial help, claiming she needed 2 to 3 million Korean won for a lawsuit with her ex-husband, and she promised to repay 3 times the amount, saying she had big contracts coming, including a drama and an ad deal worth over 1 billion Korean won. But when her friend didn't respond, she followed up in February of 2024, saying she was very sick, had been in a car accident, and needed money for hospital bills. Her final message expressed disappointment.
"I took care of the accident, but I'm very disappointed. Hope you have a good life."
When Erum received no reply again, she quickly turned her attention elsewhere. She was desperate to secure financial help, and so she reached out to B, a friend from a postnatal care center, claiming again that she needed money for divorce lawyer fees. What B was unaware of though was that Erum had already obtained a loan in secret and had named her as the guarantor, and B only found out when the loan shark contacted her, realizing her identity had actually been used. And the loan shark explained,
Erum sent a photo with her ID next to her face for verification, leading to the transaction. But now claiming to be hacked or threatened by her boyfriend puts us in an absurd situation.
And so Dispatch, the well-known Korean news outlet, reported that B shared her story with them, explaining the situation and saying that she was especially upset with Erum for exploiting people who genuinely cared about her. What is clear, however, is that later that year, Erum began borrowing money from fans under the claim that her child was sick, with her new husband allegedly involved as well. And somehow it worked. Targeting Tiara fans, the pair reportedly scammed over 30 million Korean won. One victim, whom we'll call She, stated,
"She said someone close to her is sick. She messaged me that she didn't have money for the emergency room. There were reports about abuse and I felt bad, so I lent her money."
And so the victim eventually arranged for the money to be transferred to Erum, which was a total of 3.15 million Korean won, about $2,320, while her husband borrowed another 30.6 million Korean won. And from that point on, Erum and her husband began using this hospital excuse all the time. To one victim, D, Erum sent a photo in a hospital gown, claiming that she had a serious bleed and needed 140,000 Korean won for bills. And her husband also shared hospital photos with Erum's friends. The next day, he tried the same with Frank, but when Frank questioned it, Erum brushed it off and still managed to get 50,000 Korean won. By this point, the requests had grown widespread. Another acquaintance, Jean, received a DM asking for emergency financial help. But doubting its legitimacy, Jean actually asked Erum for a verification photo, especially a selfie holding up 3 fingers. And to his shock, Erum actually complied, sending the photo from a hospital room. But once that image, along with similar exchanges, began circulating, the suspicions escalated. And so Erum publicly insisted that her accounts had been hacked. However, the supposed verification photos that she herself had submitted presented a different picture, undermining her position and raising questions. And it was very difficult to ignore the patterns by now. And the acquaintances even began to question her husband's credibility, as his promises, including the notion that he's a recognized writer, started to fall apart. And so he and Erum searched for other sources of support as the suspicion increased, ultimately focusing on Tiara's devoted fanbase, the Queens. Among them was Hank, a longtime supporter who had even attended Erum's wedding. On March 22nd, Erum messaged Hank, claiming she was hospitalized at Chang'an University Hospital with bleeding, cysts, and thyroid problems. And moved by her situation, Hank couldn't help but feel sympathy. But on March 27th, Adam was hospitalized again, but this time media outlets reported that she had attempted to leave this earth, while her husband posted on social media claiming that she was unconscious. But once she actually regained consciousness, the cycle repeated, and both began messaging their close friends pleading for money to cover supposed hospital bills at Korean University Anson Hospital. This time, however, no one gave in. By then, the scale of the fraud damage was undeniable, with estimated losses nearing 44 million Korean won and more than 10 victims stepping forward. But just days later, in early March of 2024, things took an even darker turn. Erin went public with accusations against her ex-husband. She claimed that he had abused their family in horrific ways, even alleging that he had urinated and defecated on their little ones. To support her claims, she posted a recording of her eldest on Instagram.
어디로 던졌어, 재아를?
밖으로.
문 밖에?
응.
그래서 어떻게 됐어, 우리 재아?
다쳤어.
아팠어?
응.
The audio she posted immediately set off a wave of outrage, with fans rushing to defend her and express concerns for her dependents, while her ex-husband was widely condemned. But the story shifted as the case continued. The young one's testimonies were different, and since no evidence backed her claims, suspicions soon began to turn towards Adam herself again. But she further clarified, saying,
My eldest said they were abused by their father, so I took them with me. I was in the process of being investigated with my child.
But Sadung-Hung, her new lover, told Dispatch himself that the alleged abuse was fabricated against her initial husband, saying,
It's a video Adam filmed herself, scolding them. If they said no, she hit them once on their thigh. Later, the person told me, Mom said she'd buy me a toy. Dad never pooped on me.
Of course, Sadung-Hung's statement may not be reliable either, as it came after a fight with Adam. By then, their relationship was already showing signs of strain. On April 5th, 2024, Adam reappeared publicly, debuting as a live-streaming broadcasting jockey on Africa TV. There, she directly addressed the controversies about her marriage and her legal troubles. And to the surprise of many, she also announced that she was pregnant from her current partner, Sadung-Hoo. But at the same time, reports confirmed that her two little ones from a previous marriage had been taken into protective custody and placed in a facility after she attempted to leave this earth. And reports suggested that she may have lied about the situation for sympathy and financial gain, even continuing to borrow money from fans under the guise of protecting her tiny humans. And officials began to suspect that she'd manipulated the situation, not only mistreating her own little ones, but also moving them without proper consent. And so by June 3rd, 2024, the police confirmed that Adam had been referred to prosecutors on charges of abuse and kidnapping of a. And adding fuel to the fire, Adam posted an Instagram rant on December 2024, seemingly aimed at her current partner, Sadung-Hung. She claimed he endangered her, which was a shocking turn that hinted that their relationship was unraveling far more than the public had realized. And not long after, reports surfaced that he and Adam had broken up, and she was, according to herself, coerced into swindling her own followers because of her ex-boyfriend.
I have nothing more to lose, because you're the reason I was not able to see my children when I wanted to. Do whatever you think you can. It drives me crazy that I'm carrying yet another of yours, and I'm so terribly sorry to the. At this point I feel so guilty toward the. So try your hardest. I'm going to do everything I can in my power to destroy you.
She also posted updates to her Instagram story before deleting her account entirely.
Is there really a fearless person out there who doesn't understand how serious perjury is? And it's not even about something trivial, it's about it. Because of him, my poor are now labeled as victims of child abuse. The case is over, too. I don't believe in the law or justice anymore.
And she also said,
Why stop now? Try harder. You stop one more time, I will do everything I can to expose you and drag you down once and for all. This isn't about my ex-husband. That's being taken care of in the court of law. So why would I bring him up again?
But by the end, Adam lost the case. She was convicted of family abuse and neglect herself, having verbally abused her ex-husband in front of her offspring and causing significant emotional harm. The court noted that she admitted to all the charges and that her actions inflicted serious mental health damage on the legitimate custodian of the victim. Authorities also confirmed kidnapping-related charges. In addition, Adam was found guilty of fraud and embezzlement, borrowing approximately $27,000 from fans and acquaintances under false pretenses. The court inevitably sentenced her to 6 months in prison, suspended for 2 years of probation, and ordered her to complete 40 hours of mandatory abuse prevention education. And it was eventually revealed that Sadung-Hung, her ex-boyfriend, was actually the mastermind behind the fraud. While Adam played a less active role, he was actually the one planning all of this. And so he ultimately received a heavier punishment, with 1 year and 4 months in prison. And again, for those who haven't installed the app yet, this is the moment to do so to get some free cash.